Hey guys, and welcome to the Articulated Review. You may notice the video game stuff behind me. That has nothing to do with this video. It does, however, have something to do with another video we're going to be doing that's going to kind of go into some new territory for us. And you'll see that all in the next video that we'll be shooting immediately after this one. So just stay tuned for that. And the fact that I'm wearing a video game t-shirt is just a coincidence. So I'm really kind of excited about this review, probably even more so than I was with the Hellboy review, because this is a comic book character that I've always loved. He's definitely in like my top 5 of all time comic book characters. Probably not the same for a lot of people. He hasn't been really popular since the 90s. That character is, of course, Lobo. And I have the Lobo Sideshow Collectibles exclusive 6 scale figure. So just to give some background on Lobo, like I've been doing with all the characters so far, I'll even turn around the box here so you get a nice picture of him for those of you who aren't familiar with him, familiar with the main man, the ultimate bastich, Master Frag. Lobo originally appeared in Omega Men #3 in 1983 or 84, which was kind of a combination of Teen Titans and some other group. But he showed up as a bad guy. And pay no mind to what he looks like in the picture. He doesn't look like that, obviously, now. He was pretty much dropped completely, and in the comic book industry, he was called what they call retconned. He was retconned again in the 90s and brought back as the biker look you see here. His introduction back was a 4-part series called Lobo the Last Zarnian, which I highly recommend you read. I actually own all 4 of the original print of the comic book, and is still to this day one of my favorite short little comic book stories. When they brought him back kind of as an anti-hero. He was kind of DC's first real anti-hero. And anti-heroes in comic books became a very big thing in the 90s. And of course, in the 90s, I was a preteen, and this town I lived in had a little comic book store. And I was the weird kid that would go in there and read like the Dark Horse comics, and I would read like Judge Dredd and you know, Predators and Aliens versus Predators, like all the really dark comic books. And I came across Lobo, and really at that point in time, the only mainstream comic book characters I was into was Wolverine and Batman. So I came across this guy, and immediately was like, oh my God, this is the coolest comic book character ever. He's called the Last Zarnian because when they brought him back, the 2 guys that brought him back, his issue was written by Alan Grant, not that Alan Grant, that Alan Grant. And the artwork was done by Simon Bisley, which I think Simon Bisley also, if I'm not mistaken, did some issues of Weapon X, although I may be confusing him with Sam Keith, who did the Max. I'm not sure. But anyway, when they brought him back, the story is that on his planet, it was a utopian planet called Zarnia. And for his 8th grade science project, he created a plague of flying death wasp scorpion things that wiped out his entire planet and left just him. And that plays a big part into the 4-part series they brought back, because it turns out he's not the Last Zarnian. But anyway, you have to read the comic book. I'm not going to ruin that for you. Outside of those issues, some good ones to pick up if you want to get into him is Infanticide, which is a storyline where he has an illegitimate daughter who wants to hunt him down and kill him. The Paramilitary Christmas Special is a good one. And Un-American Gladiators, which I think in Un-American Gladiators, he actually dies and then comes back because he just goes to heaven and goes to hell and kicks everybody's butts, and neither place wants him, so they just kick him back out, and he's essentially immortal now. They wanted him to kind of be in the antithesis to Wolverine. They were kind of making fun, parodying Wolverine, Punisher, some of Marvel at that time had a goody two-shoes image, but they had these really violent characters like Punisher and Wolverine. And so this was kind of DC's send-up of those characters kind of making fun of Marvel, like, come on guys, I mean, you have some really violent characters and you're trying to be goody-goody. And DC had, at that time, I think Dark Horse was a subsidiary of DC, so DC had kind of wandered into darker territory. He did have his own 64-issue series from 93 to 99. I always felt like the series was a little weaker. He doesn't lend himself very well to being a long-term running character. So 93 to 99, not the best Lobo stories. Although the final issue, which was called Lobo Episode 1 Million, or Issue 1 Million, was pretty funny because it's kind of a parody of him. So that was a worthwhile issue to pick up and read. He's a space bounty hunter. The main person he wants to kill or capture and bring into prison for some reason is Superman. And it may be because him and Superman are kind of identical in the sense that they're both immortal, they're both super strong, they can't be killed. Superman's like the ultimate bounty for him, but he is kind of a good guy too, even though he kind of destroys everything, but still manages to kind of pull off the right thing sometimes, even though he's really only in it for the money. So he's kind of a good guy by accident, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And the only thing he loves is these things called space dolphins, which he can actually survive the vacuum of space, and he rides around on this big demonic space motorcycle, and when he does, these dolphins kind of ride along with him, these space dolphins. Trippy. But anyway, there's a whole lot more to this character. There's probably things I'm glossing over, I'm forgetting, but that's the main points of him for anybody who's not really kind of familiar with his backstory. So anyway, that's enough of that. So let's actually get into the figure. So the box art is pretty simple. It has this nice Lobo symbol. It's raised. It's on the sides as well. Of course, you saw the back of the box, him on his bike. Pretty simple. I like these real simple boxes. DC also did the same style of box with their Batman figures, where it was just very simple, clean, shoebox style, and I like that. Down here it says the nice little Sideshow exclusive sticker. I don't really know what's exclusive about this. I mean, other than it's exclusively made by Sideshow. A lot of times Sideshow does a thing where if you purchase it exclusively through Sideshow's website, you get something special with it that you wouldn't if you bought it through, say, like Big Bad Toy Store or something like that. So I wasn't really sure, because I don't think they did anything, particularly special with it. But anyhow, we're gonna open him up here and take a look at him. And there's the space dolphins. Oh, and this is Dog. This is like his sidekick that every once in a while when he gets into trouble, Dog does something bad, Dog's not his dog and he kills Dog, but then Dog just suddenly like reappears randomly. I think some people were disappointed that this being specific to Sideshow, they did an exclusive. They didn't include like maybe a little dog figure to go with him, kind of his little sidekick. The other thing I would like is that, somebody out there who can do custom, make his bike. His bike is cool. I want that. Anyway, and then there he is, Lobo. Now I will contend, and I'm sure there's people out there that will disagree with me, that this is some of Sideshow Collectibles' best work. I'm really impressed with this figure. They actually had to do, they had to make their own, they had to do a whole new body sculpt to get his body. He's not as big, in the comic books he was a very big, very muscular, very large guy. And he's still very muscular here, but it's very, cut down, very leaned out compared to what he looks like in the comic books. Another complaint a lot of people had was the hair, and I'll get him out of here and we can talk about that a little closer. His hair is short, and in most of the comic books he has, long hair, and I think there for a long time he had dreadlocks even. I think in one of the video games, one of the Injustice fighting games, he's the Lobo with dreadlocks. The hair works for this just because I think had they gone with the long hair version, it just wouldn't have been, the head would not have had as much mobility. It would have bumped into the shoulders, it would have been stuck against the back, and in which case their only other option would have been to do real hair. And, real hair on these things doesn't have a lot of longevity. If you look really close, another complaint some people have had is that you can see that the hair is actually in several different pieces. There's the main part here on the front. This chunk here is a separate piece. This chunk here is a separate piece, and then back here on the back is a separate piece. So it's actually 4 separate pieces. And if you look really close, you can see the seams a little bit. I'm not entirely sure why they did that, other than I think that possibly if you look really close at his mouth, it looks like the teeth, it's actually, I guess the technical term would be dentures that have been put in from the back. So his mouth was sculpted out just empty, and then the head's hollowed out back here, and they slid the teeth into place. And then this covers all that up, and they made it in sections and then glued it back in there. You have to be looking really close to notice it. It's not really something that I'm going to complain about, but I know it was an issue for some people. Of course, he has the nice leather vest. I'm sure this is pleather. It doesn't feel like real leather. It has the nice little "Bite Me" fanboy, that's iconic. That's him. You have the nice little. Some of you are maybe too young to remember these. These used to come on tapes and CDs. Well, I'll just say CDs so I don't confuse you anymore. Back in the 90s, they put parental advisory explicit lyrics. He's got the little foot deal there. He's got a little picture of dog on that button. And then on that button is, it's space dolphins on that button. So they really tried to put a lot of detail into it to kind of translate his image as much as possible into the figure. The pants feel like real, they look like real denim, they feel like real denim. He's got the nice little knee guards. Actually, who's the character from Watchmen, the comedian? This kind of reminds me of the comedian for some reason with those knee pads. And he's got his nice, spikes on his boots. He kind of has this, from here down, kind of has this like Kiss thing going on, Gene Simmons monster boots thing going on. The boots are really nicely detailed. He's got this nice little gun holster here. He's got his little skull on his belt. Just overall, I just feel like that Sideshow went all out and put a lot of detail work into him. I don't know necessarily more so than their other figures. It's just, of everything I've seen from Sideshow, I feel like a lot of whatever artist did this figure has a lot of love for Lobo, and that really kind of comes through. Like this, they knew this was kind of a one-off figure. I don't know that I know the initial run that I got him from was like, he's one of only 1,500 they made. I don't know if they wound up making more. I feel like the limited runs because they weren't sure how well he would sell, because as of 99, 2000, he's kind of a ghost in DC. He popped up in some of the cartoons, and but that was really it. So they may just kind of been hedging their bets on how well he would sell. I don't know that all 1,500 units sold. I haven't checked the website to see if it's sold out or if it's still in any kind of sales status where you can still order it. And I like the look they put on his face, that nice kind of grimacing look. That's actually kind of, I think, an homage to issue number 2 or 3 of the 4 series issue of Lobo the Last Narnian, where he's making the cover of the comic book is this face. And so I think that's kind of a nod to that. But anyway, we'll get into the accessories next. He's got just his fist hands, which is the standard hands that they usually pack their figures in with. They just go ahead and put the fisted hands on. We're gonna go ahead and address one issue. A lot of people had an issue with the whaling hook. So one of Lobo's weapons is a toe chain hook that's wrapped around his wrist, and we'll get to that in a second. But for some reason, I mean, I understand Sideshow takes artistic liberties with their figures, and they'll kind of combine several different looks over the decades into one character, but Lobo has never used a hook this big. Why they went with this, I do not know. I've seen some tutorials where people have taken and trimmed from here to here, and then trimmed from here to here to make it, and then cut this off completely, and actually made it into his shortened toe hook that he actually, they can just have it where it's just hanging loosely off of his wrist. I am something of a purist. I don't do a lot of modifications or anything to I really don't do any modifications at all, or buy aftermarket mods for my figures. I kind of like them to be stock, how I bought them from Sideshow, Hot Toys, whoever. I have thought about seeing if there's anybody out there that customizes these that I could buy another one off of, so I could still have the original one, because I'm actually really kind of unhappy with this too. It just really doesn't fit the look of Lobo. The chain that comes with him that you hook the hook to, the whaling hook to, is actually real metal. And that is because since it wraps around his arm, his forearm over here, what Sideshow has done that's pretty ingenious is there's a magnet inside there. And so the chain just sticks and you can just wrap it around, which I'm doing a crappy job of doing right now, but you get the idea. So the chain will actually stay in place. And then you've got the extra length of chain to go, to the hook, and it actually just has a little bit of a gap on the bottom of the hook where the chain can fit up in there and it stays on. His other weapon he comes with is just his sidearm, just a standard pistol that he carries. The chamber, it actually spins. It doesn't pop out. The hammer on it actually does go up and down. I don't think it doesn't break open or anything, it doesn't break over. But it's a nicely detailed weapon. I think it's kind of a combination of looks of several different guns he's used. Because outside of his chain hook, and sometimes he would use these like meat cleaver blade things, he just kind of uses an array of different firearms and grenades and stuff like that. So they kind of went with just something that kind of has a universal look to all his weapons. It's kind of got this space yet kind of conventional like Colt Python thing going on. So pretty cool little gun. He comes with 2 other sets of hands besides the ones that are on him. He has, this is a hand for, it really is a hand that kind of holds the chain hook, and you can kind of like drape the chain through it. It's kind of this hand for holding the chain, or you can actually put part of the, you can settle part of the chain hook in there, and then this is the hand that actually grips the hook itself by the handle. So he comes with those sets of hands. He then comes with 2 other right hands. So it's not a set, it's not a left and a right, it's just 2 other right hands. He has a right hand here that is the hand obviously for holding the pistol. And then this was what was the special exclusive thing with Sideshow, is that you got a hand holding a cigar. Because he, you know, always has a stogie. That's, I mean, in and of itself is pretty cool. You know, the fact that the cigar is molded to the hand, where he's holding it that way, it does limit you that, you know, you can't have the cigar in his mouth, or, you know, whatever, you can't move the cigar from one hand to the other. So it was kind of, to me, an odd decision to do a sculpted hand that's holding something. And especially that they used one of the steel knuckle hands with the spikes to be the one holding the cigar. I don't know. It was just an interesting, I don't know, it was an odd aesthetic choice to me, that why they did that. But anyway, and of course he comes with the typical stand. The base is just it would be just a normal base, except they put in this little insert, well, insert, I say, this little card, Al's Diner. If you've read the comic books, you'll understand the joke with Al's Diner, because the thing is, the only place in the entire universe he likes to go is this place called Al's Diner. And invariably, he always ends up somehow destroying Al's Diner. And it always gets rebuilt. And finally, somewhere along the line, he ended up destroying the entire planet around Al's Diner, except for Al's Diner itself. So all the construction workers that had to rebuild the planet could only eat at Al's Diner. So it made Al rich. And eventually, I think towards the end, around Lobo issue 1 million, Lobo owned his own diner. And he's like this massively giant, obese guy who's like a sideshow freak and like a parody of himself. He ends up destroying that diner too. They gave it to him Al gave it to him as a birthday present. So anyway, that's just kind of an interesting little nod to something, you know, a lot of people may not know about Lobo, because I know a lot of people who are into Lobo have really only read the miniseries and never read the actual 64 issue run from 93 to 99. But anyway, I thought that was just kind of funny that they put that in there. I laughed when I saw that. So anyway, guys, that's it. That's my review of the Lobo 6 scale Sideshow collectibles figure. All in all, a fantastic figure. Honestly, if you're not into Lobo, probably not one you need to drop the money on. But if you are into Lobo, this is really your only option for a 6 scale Lobo figure. Honestly, even if you are into Lobo, I would recommend picking this up, because I do still stand by that this is probably one of the best 6 scale figures that Sideshow has ever put out. And I know a lot of people are gonna disagree with me on that probably, but I just feel like it is, from all the ones I've ever seen, pictures of, held in my hands, looked at, what I actually have in my collection. I just feel like it's one of their strongest figures they've ever put out. So I highly recommend it. Anyway, that's it. Until next time, guys. Daymare.